Om Namah Shivaya, Asenes Fire here on the way of Dharma. I'm going to talk to you today about a very interesting subject, that of colonialism, or rather the beginning of slavery. This topic came about as a result of a comment that I saw from someone who says they are Hindu and has been noticing that many people are turning back to Christ. This was a reply to my video about witchcraft. The video that I was talking about witchcraft. Apparently, this person, I think they are replying to it. Yes. So this is how this topic came about. We are also going to touch upon the fact of Congo, as I wanted to discuss many things about Congo, but I didn't quite have a chance. So yes, stay tuned. Make sure that you do like, make sure that you do subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Welcome to those of you who are new, and I'd like to welcome you back, those of you who always participate and comment and do everything with us. So yes guys, the Way of Dharma is a channel where we talk about spiritual topics. We discuss spiritual matters, esoteric systems from the Western esoteric side, meaning the European continent and the American continent. We also discuss topics from spirituality or spiritual systems from the Oriental, which can be also known as the Indian or the Hindu spiritual system, and also we discuss African spiritual systems here on the Way of Dharma. I also offer a few things like consultations and numerological readings, which give you an idea of how the planets are influencing you and how is your karma looking, and also what else, many other aspects of yourself that you are unconsciously aware of but cannot quite confirm. So these readings work as a medium to confirm, because that's what they do. They confirm your temperament and what's influencing you to behave a certain way. Om Namah Shivaya. So first of all, I'm going to tell you a story or a few stories about what I've heard from Shri Babaji Credo Muto. His colonialism stories or his colonization stories. So where do I start? Let's start with this one, the South African one, of course, because I come from South Africa. So let's start with the South African one. So it is said that all throughout the African continent, the priests, the prophets of that era in the olden days actually saw that there was a race of beings that were coming into Africa to colonize Africa. These people would come having hair that was, I don't know how to describe this, but hair that's falling basically, like that of animals or dogs basically. These people would have a certain pigmentation and they would travel in certain vehicles, of course. So they were prepared long before the white man could arrive over here in Africa. Who do I mean by the white man? I mean the European, basically. So yes, not to say this in a disrespectful way, I'm just relating with everyone, basically, making the stories as simple as possible for everyone to understand. Yes, Om Namah Shivaya. So they came from the Western Hemisphere. And then coming from the Western Hemisphere, they came into South Africa. The first one of the first people to discover South Africa, came in through the Cape of Good Hope, or Cape Province basically. And this was, I think, Jan van Riebeeck. As we were taught in school, we think of Jan van Riebeeck. They came with us with certain boats, and then they established a colony over there in the Cape, basically. So prior to that, the seers of that time, as knowledge was passed down up until this time, the seers said that they used to see strange sightings of things, of beings that did not look human before this finally happened, the colonialism or the arrival of the European on the Cape Province, or yes. So it was said that there used to be these monopods, or these creatures that used to hop about on one leg, because you can't do anything else besides hop on one leg basically. So these creatures used to hop on one leg. They had two hands, one leg, and they were wearing something similar to that of the missionary robes that came from the West, basically, the Western Hemisphere. So these things looked like, or wore clothing that looked like the missionaries. Who are the missionaries? Missionaries are people who were spreading the gospel at the time. You understand? In some cases, they said that they couldn't penetrate Africa, so they had to go back to Europe to find a religion to spread among the Africans, to further uh, promulgate or perpetuate their idea of divide and conquer, basically, Om Namah Shivaya. So before we even continue, let us open this up with a chant of Shri Ganesha and a few chants to summon energy that will obviously help us in spreading this message that we are spreading currently, to make sure that we have the right choice of words and we stick to truth as much as possible. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurme Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Rishibhyo Namaha. Om Pitribhyo Namaha. Om Siddhoga Namaha. Om Divyoga Namaha. Om Manabhoga Namaha. Om Saptarishaya Namaha. So yes, guys, where was I? We were talking about these creatures that were hopping about. So they looked like missionaries. As you may have seen the missionary robes, they looked like missionaries. So shortly after that, that's when the Europeans came into the picture. So what's amazing about this story was that in the Americas, the Native Americans also claim to have a similar experience of seeing such creatures hopping about in that place. Also in New Zealand, they used to have such sightings before the arrival of the European. Om Namah Shivaya. So let's continue. These people are making noise. Anyway, let's continue. And once again, in South Africa, and then the Europeans came. They came to conquer. They did such and such things. So fast forward to a time, there was a divine priestess or a prophetess by the name of non-Ngawuse, a Xhosa divine prophetess. So it is said that at the time they couldn't penetrate the Xhosas because they were furious warriors. So they couldn't penetrate them, uh, as was the case with every other South African tribe, of course. So by doing that, seeing that they couldn't do that, there's a man and by the name Sir George Grey. Sir George Grey um, was a prominent figure. I think he also had rulership in New Zealand and is also one of the people or the forefathers of the Cape Colony or the founders of the Cape Colony. So, in another story, it was said that Sir George Grey was known to be a very, very strange man, a very, very mysterious character. When all didn't go well in their conquests, this was the man to summon. This was the man to go to. This was the man to um, call, basically. So Sir George Grey, what was he in actuality? So according to my understanding and some of the descriptions that they give about him, that guy was an occultist, uh, a practitioner of magic and a high level of esoteric practices of Namashivaya. So why do I say so? Seeing that they couldn't penetrate the Xhosas, they couldn't conquer or overthrow the Xhosas. That's when they turned to who? Sir George Grey, Om Namah Shivaya. Sir George Grey, they called him, and then when they called him, the divine priestess or the prophetess of the Xhosa people heard voices calling her to go to a certain pit, meaning a hole dug under. So as she was approaching that pit, three cloaked beings wearing robes similar to those of the missionaries, covered, couldn't see their faces. These beings emerged out of that pit. Um, and then as they emerged out of the pit, they instructed non-Ngawuse, or is it non-Ngawuse? I forgot, non-Ngawuse. But I remember in primary, man, they taught us of a non-Ngawuse. So anyway, these beings emerged and they gave her instructions to do what? To burn crops and to kill their livestock, which is cows, basically, their cattle. When she questioned what was going to happen and what would be the cost for this for this prompt or this instruction, these beings instructed non-Ngawuse that there would be a disease spreading, a disease called smallpox, I think. So that disease would spread and ravage the entire nation and livestock. So, as a preparation, because these livestock would be the further um, carriers of that disease, so they had to kill them and to burn their crops to basically um, be immune of this thing. Basically, it doesn't make any sense, but that's what happened. So the Xhosa then burnt their crops and they killed their livestock. So as a result of that, they faced famine for a period of time. And facing famine, you know what hunger does to you. You become weak, you become frail, you become malnourished. So a malnourished person, a frail person, a hungry person, a weak person doesn't make a good warrior. So after that happened, that's when they attacked. All thanks to who? Sir George gray. Another character that we place much scrutiny and emphasis on is Cecil John Rhodes. Now, this is a man of a mysterious character also, a man who used to go around villages participating in their occult rituals and going around spreading violence in the form of divide and conquer. He would go to a certain tribe and lie that a certain tribe said such and such things about that tribe to cause warfare and quarrel amongst those two parties. And then when it finally happened, he would then come to conquer. Om Namah Shivaya. This man also did one of the most heinous crimes against African people. What did he do exactly? He then went into Rhodesia on top of, or rather, on top of the mountains where we have our sacred, or rather our prominent priests who were buried at the time. He went and then put his graves on top of, or rather, on a place where it would be regarded to be sacred. He was buried basically on top of those guys, insinuating or implying that he was of a higher rank than those African leaders, basically. Om Namah Shivaya. So, also Zimbabwe was named after him, Rhodesia, responsible for so many killings and so many massacres in Rhodesia. So, yes, Cecil John Rhodes. So, the conquest of the colonialists came about as a first an occult warfare against our African people, and then finally it came in physical what basically. It resulted in physical warfare basically. So a spiritual warfare was waged against our people basically. Om Drupam Samarpayami. So yes, guys, spiritual warfare was used to destroy our people, and also what in the stories of Lesotho, basically, before the Basotho people called themselves the Basotho people, which I come from that tribe, basically. So there was a philosopher by the name Moshomi. You can also check his history on YouTube. He has a video where they talk about him. It's him and Mantsopa, a prophetess of the Basotho. So in what we know today as Lesotho, there was a man, a ruler, and a great philosopher, Moshomi. Moshomi one day in his heart, and this is basically I'm talking out of the videos of Babaji Credo Mutwa, Shri Babaji Credo Mutwa. I'm not claiming to know this information. I'm merely spreading the word according to what I've learned from watching Babaji. So I'm merely translating or making it understandable to the modern people, or spreading the message just with another perspective. I'm merely doing that. I don't claim ownership over the information. You understand? You overstand it now. So Moshomi, while he was in his heart with his wife, of course, out of his heart, in the fireplace, emerged a tall, pale white being who was clothed, basically, and instructed Moshomi to give his rulership to a man who was regarded a Robin Hood, basically, of the Basotho people, who was later known as King Moshoeshoe. So, as Credo Mutwa says, that King Moshoeshoe's name, before it became Moshoeshoe, was the Potro, because it implied that he was a disappointment. I don't know the one of the Potro. The only name that I know of King Moshoeshoe is Leopold. You understand? That's what I know, not the Potro. So that's what Babaji says. Anyway, we'll go with what he says. So he says that this man was a cattle stealer. Uh, as you may know, the Basotho are famous for stealing cattle. Anyway, yes, let's continue. A cattle stealer who was stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. So in a way, he was a role model to poor people. So Mohlomi was instructed to give his kingship to him. Mind you, this person is in no way related to Mohlomi, but he was instructed to give his rulership to him. So that's how then King Moshoeshoe came into the picture. When King Moshoeshoe was crowned, he was then later called Moshoeshoe instead of Dipotro or Lepotro. So Moshoeshoe became the greatest ruler of the Basotho people. He founded the Basotho nation. He also was adored and admired among his people, basically. They loved him so much, they admired him so much that even to this day, they they celebrate his birthday. It's actually a holiday in Lesotho, his birthday, Om Namah Shivaya. So let's continue. You see where this is going. And then later on, the British came to conquer Lesotho. And then it didn't even require much. I don't think the Basotho people actually fought against the colonialism. Instead, do you know what happened? The Boers, the Afrikaners, because there's two types of people that colonized South Africa. One, the British, and the Dutch, who later called themselves the Afrikaner. What does this word Afrikaner mean? It means African, basically. It's an Afrikaner word for African in the Afrikaner language, basically. So they are saying that they are Africans, basically. Their language came about as a formulation of Dutch and a bit of English and some of the languages of the African people. You understand? So they call themselves Afrikaners. Their language is called Afrikaans. So the Boers were coming, and they were coming furiously to attack, or rather, they were lying, saying that no, they were not lying. They were coming to attack, to take the land of the Basotho. So seeing that King Moshoeshoe had heard that the Boers were furious warriors, through hearsay, mind you, he then put the Basotho under a British protectorate, meaning the British were to protect the Basotho nation from the Afrikaners. So that's how they took control of Lesotho. In another part of southern Africa, Botswana, a man, uh, what's that guy's name? But the king at the time of the Botswana was taken to Britain, to England, basically. It is said that they used to grill him when he was abroad. Um, yes, yes, the son of the king used to study abroad in England, basically. So they used to grill him. They used to grill him, teaching him psychologically, probing into his mind to actually make him one of their puppets. and then he later came into rulership and took power. That's when they initiated the idea of him marrying a, a white or a European daughter, woman. That's how they took control of Botswana. They took control of Botswana in that way. So now let's talk about the DRC, Congo. First, I'm going to talk about the positive side of the Congo and how it contributes into modern spirituality, or what would be known as modern African spirituality in this day and age. So the Congo people are black people. I think they come from East Africa, I'd like to think. Um, the Congo are a very, very spiritual people, having one of the most powerful spiritual systems in Africa, basically. So the Congo are responsible for the famously known spiritual practice or spiritual system of Palo Mayombe. There's also Palo what? There's so many Palo systems basically coming out of Congo, later promulgated in different parts of the world. So Palo Mayombe is said to come from Mexico or Mexico. So how does this come into play with the Mexicans? Okay, let's talk about it. It is said that outside of the African continent, the largest group of Africans to come out of the African continent stay in Brazil. And mind you, we are not talking about the Jamaicans, we are not talking about the Haitians, or we are not talking about the Americans. The largest group of African people to come out of Africa to stay somewhere else but not Africa actually come from Congo, and they are in Brazil. That's the largest group of African people that you can find. So in actuality, Brazilians are African people. So seeing that the Brazilians are in a way related to the Latinas, or they are the Latinas, and they also relate to the Spanolas, who are the Mexicans. I think Espanol is a language that came about as a result of the colonizers of that time, who were what? What's that guy's name? I forgot the guy's name who conquered and went into Mexico. Or yes, but Espanol is one of the conquerors, just like we have the Afrikaners, and some places they have the English conquering them, some they have the Portuguese conquering them, but Espanol is actually a language of the white men who conquered that part of the world, basically. So the Mexicans were among the native groups of that time. So they relate to the Brazilians because they are in actuality Africans. So yes, guys, through that lineage of connection with the Brazilians, they connect into Congo. And then we have a man, Carlos Montenegro Galdiano, the writer or the author of the book on Palo. No, yes, the book on Palo and Palo Mayombe, that book. So to get initiated into that spiritual system, you'd require a ganga. So a ganga, which is also called an nganga here in South Africa, which is a pot. This thing, it means a pot. This thing basically. This can be bought from ShopRite. I bought it from ShopRite if you want it. I use it to store kumkum powder. You may also use it to burn incense, resin, with charcoal from a hubbly bubbly oga pipe. Anyway, yes, let's continue. This is Nganga. So you would require Nganga, you'd require a human skeleton, You'd require uh, 36 mosquitoes. You would require so many other elements and herbs to actually invoke that spirit of Zarabanda. Zarabanda is a class of spirits. It's much more similar, like I'm not saying similar in characteristics. I'm saying it's much more similar like the Goetia, where you have the vessel of Solomon, where you invoke spirits, different spirits into that vessel, and then you bind them inside. So Zarabanda spirits are summoned into a Ganga pot or a Nganga pot, which is then used for when you do rituals, basically. When you speak to the Zarabanda spirit, you speak to this, you understand? It will have a skull, so many other elements. To initiate, you require that, and it's so much costly. But I think if you are daring enough, if you have balls enough, you can take the veves out of the book of Palomayombe and actually contact those spirits. As Panic would say in his videos that he actually didn't require to do those that Nganga thing. He instead contacted them through the veves, basically. So Palomayombe is said to be a very, very powerful spiritual system, having many spirits like Santissima Muerte. Santissima Muerte. Man, you see how I speak this thing, man. It's very nice, man. Santissima Muerte. There's also El Cristo Negro and many other spirits, basically. Very, very powerful spiritual system of the Mexicans. But why am I speaking about this? There's a book, the book on Palo, where you actually see that it's a much lighter spiritual system as compared to Palo Mayombe. Even in the book of Palo Mayombe by Carlos Montenegro, he says that these spirits actually come from the Congo in Africa, basically. So there's a book on Palo by also Carlos Montenegro. He goes into the African spirits in Palo. And among those African spirits, we also have a Zulu king by the name of Tetwayo or Tetwayo. Yes, Tetwayo or Tetwayo. I don't know. Yes, that guy is said to be Papa Shango. In the book of Palo, he is called Siete Rayos. Yes, Siete Rayos. Who is in actuality Quechua, is a corrupt word for the name Quechua, who is also said to be an incarnation of Papa Shango or King Shango or Shango from the Yoruba, not Yoruba. What am I saying, man? The Yoruba pantheon of the Yoruba people. Do you like this one? Yes, I also like this one. So you can see a correlation and a connection of the Africans in general. That's where you see that we are connected. Whether you are Nigerian, even though you sell drugs, we are connected to you. Whether you come from Congo, we are connected because we in South Africa had a king who was an incarnation or an incarnate of Papa Shango from the Yoruba. So we are related. In actuality, when you trace our story, those of us who live in South Africa, we actually, all Africans come from Ethiopia. and then we came down through the journey of Asazi to a place where we call Asazi, which was later discovered and called South Africa, or Mzansi, or Namashivai. Mzansi means that which is south, or that which is down in the crude translation of the word. Uh, yes, that which is down. From the words panti, which is down, which is also called the floor. In Sesotho, fati or classy. Anyway, let's talk about these Congo people. And then remember, I spoke of a man, George Gray, and I spoke of Cecil John Rhodes. There's another man, King Leopold of Belgium. King Leopold of Belgium came into the Congo to extract minerals and natural resources and commodities from the Congo. It is said that the Congo is one of the richest in Africa in minerals and in natural resources and metals, basically. One of the richest, if not the richest. So what do? The King Leopolds. They come from Belgium, conquer Congo, is responsible for a massacre of people killed more than the massacre of the Jews. But you won't hear about this. You won't hear about this. Killing many Africans as a result. The largest massacre, basically. This man, King Leopold, was responsible for that. Um, and then also we come to the part that I wanted to talk about this guy. So he then became a ruler, and then what did he do? While the Congo people were starving, couldn't fight him, he then took the resources and became rich out of it. Still exploit the African people through his generations that is currently living today. Um, it's a sad story. Anyway, let's talk about the main thing that we are talking about here. So King Leopold has a nephew who is a traveler, who is an explorer, basically. That's what I wanted to say, an explorer. So this explorer came into the Congo, and then as he came into the Congo, he traveled by ship uh, through a certain lake or water or ocean, basically. And then as he was traveling with his crew to explore, he then went through into another portal, a portal which is similar to the portal that you would famously know as the Bermuda Triangle. Bermuda Triangle. So the Bermuda Triangle, there's many other portals over or all over the world, world, all over the world, basically, um, in various parts of Earth, basically. So one of the portals can be found in Congo, the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. So he then went in through that portal and he came across a race of beings which had features of black people, basically, which he says that are not of an earthly origin or originate from the planet Earth. These people were said to be the most cruel people that he has ever come across. These beings showed tentacles in various limbs of their body, um, very, very advanced and evolved in the art of sorcery and witchcraft and alchemy, basically. Very, very powerful spiritual beings. They devoured an entire crew After doing that, they tortured them beyond human comprehension. It is said that the trauma that would result from such encounters, you lose your sanity. As a result, the niece of King Leopold of Belgium, was spared. Basically, he was spared. They didn't kill him, but his entire crew was killed. And in those explorations, they had cameras which had pictures, and you will see. I will link it up there now. You will see. I will link it up there now. You will see as I link up the pictures and I slide them, the type of people that I talk about. He says that he's never seen such a thing. And mind you, these people have seen massacres, have seen genocides from his uncle being responsible for them. So even if he says that that's the most traumatic things, you best believe, because that's a trauma basically. So he then was able to navigate himself out of that portal, and then he came to talk to the public basically, not the public, but the people who were responsible for him at the time, the people who had known about his journey at the time. So he couldn't say anything because he had no sense, because insanity was on him because of the things that he had seen. Imagine being traumatized enough to a point whereby you are mad basically. So the people who discovered him took the cameras and went to watch the pictures and the photos. They saw some of the scariest things basically. Some of the scariest things basically. So yes, this is what I wanted to say basically. Uh, through a portal. So I think, because judging from those pictures, those beings, they have a pigment that is similar to mine. You understand? So I don't know what to call them, but I'd like to call them black people of Congo. So they are advanced in spiritual sorcery and witchcraft, basically. So them being advanced, automatically you would perceive Congo to be a very, very significant place in terms of spirituality and witchcraft and sorcery. Because if you were to access that portal, since they, since they are black people, they would allow you with open arms. I'm not saying you must go there and then you die as a result of this knowledge. Please, please don't do that. As a disclaimer, I am not a professional. I'm not a researcher. Whatever that you do with this knowledge that I'm giving you, please know that I will not be held liable. I will not be held liable. So that's what I wanted to say about Congo. If you have anything that you can search online about this thing, please do share with me over here. And if you know some stories about Congo that you can share with me, please make sure that you do share. This is what I wanted to discuss with you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please make sure that you do subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I am Arsonist Fire here on the way of Dharma. If you want consultations, if you want numerological readings, you can get me at arsonist.fya@gmail.com. Thank you. Om Namah Shivaya.